Hi, my name is Vincent Sweet, and I'm here to give you a little history lesson about the Korean War. You might be asking yourself a question. How did the U.S. even come to settle in South Korea? Well, during World War II, when Japan was conquered by the U.S. and its allies, the reward was the Korean Peninsula. While the Soviet Union took the North, the U.S. took the South. Sometimes the Korean War is often referred as the Forgotten War because it was more or less part of the Cold War. When Nazi Germany and its allies were defeated during World War II, it left the U.S. and the Soviet Union as the two superpowers in the world. Now, although the Soviet Union and the U.S. were allies and fought together during this war, they still had different political views. The U.S. believing in democracy and the Soviet Union believing in communism. As if the Korean Peninsula fell under new regime wasn't enough to divide the country, now they had two different ways of doing business, with the influence of communism in the North and the influence of democracy in the South. War was bound to happen. Harry Truman said this, and I quote, "If we let Korea down, the Soviets will keep right on, swallow one up after another," referring to the spread of communism. The Korean War started in January 1950 with the Soviets and China as his allies. Kim Il-sung and his forces moved into South Korea to unify the Korean Peninsula by force. The North Koreans were quite successful at the beginning of the war, pushing the South Koreans all the way down to the southern tip of the peninsula, until the United Nations moved in to help them. The United Nations and the South Koreans launched an amphibious assault, pushing the North Koreans all the way up through the 38th parallel to the Ula River. The Ula River is the boundary point between North Korea and China. After more and more fighting back and forth through the entire peninsula in the 38th parallel, the war finally ended in July 1953 with the signing of the Armistice Agreement. The Armistice Agreement was basically a ceasefire. This also consisted of the demilitarized zone and the 38th parallel being the boundary point between the two countries. Still to this day, it stands, and they are still technically at war. In 2010, the North Koreans fired artillery shells at a South Korean island during a South Korean military training session. At this point, this was the biggest attack since the end of the war. Still to this day, the U.S. occupies military bases in South Korea to deter the North Korean communism aggression. Thank you. Have a nice day.